everyone, and thank you for joining me today. I have got a really fantastic guest on the show who makes bags for Wildish people. So what does that all mean? Let's find out. Let's bring on Oscar from BearMade. Hello, Oscar. How are
Hello.
you?
Very good, thank you. How are you doing, Kate?
Good, good. So I first found out about you, Oscar, because a member of my team said you have got to check out this BearMade brand. They make all their bags in the UK, and I couldn't believe I'd not actually heard of you before. So I'm really glad I
Okay.
found you, and I became a customer of yours, got one of your bags, absolutely love it. And that's why I wanted to get you on the show today. So
Amazing.
do you want to start by telling everyone how did BearMade come about? How long have you been going, and what were you doing before you set up BearMade?
Sure. So probably easiest to start with what I was doing before I started BearMade, which is so for the last probably like 10 years, I guess, I've been working as a professional fly fisherman, so guiding, writing, all that kind of stuff to try and make a living from that. And when we started BearMade, I was actually living in Hampshire and working down there. And I was in a coffee shop one afternoon and I bumped into Nell, who is now my business partner slash wife.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah. And she basically said that she had wanted to do more fly fishing and had done it before, but was very intimidated by that whole industry and like how much stuff you needed and all of this kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, it's a real shame. And we spent a few months fishing together and talking and eventually I got to the point where I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if we just made like a little bag that would just take kind of the bare essentials, a very simple fishing bag. And also around that time, I'd been in the process of starting a charity, which ultimately didn't work out, but it was focused on using fishing as a tool to help people with mental health difficulties, which is something that we both Nell and I are really passionate about, suffer from, and kind of is a big part of our everyday lives. And I sort of thought, okay, well, why don't we make these bags and then try and use the money that we make from the bags to fund those workshops. Anyway, quite long story short, that was about 4 years ago now. My timelines are pretty poor. That's where Nell comes useful. But we started that about 4 years ago, and it wasn't long before we were like, actually, maybe, we basically made a backpack for fishing, which other people started buying. And we were like, oh, actually, maybe this kind of works for other things. And then that backpack was featured in Wired, and we were actually called we were called Bare Minimum at the time, but it was a bit confusing. They called us Bare Made, and so we were like, well, we've gone from complete obscurity to slightly less obscurity. So perhaps that, and we did ask them to change it, but they just didn't get back to us. So we were like, well, okay, that's our name now,
Brilliant.
and it stuck. And yeah, and then just sort of from there, the first prototype we made was awful. We made it on Nell's granny sewing machine, and it was completely the wrong
Brilliant.
size. And then I started making the prototypes. They were also awful. Thankfully, we found Amy, who is our amazing bag maker in Suffolk. Like she is just like watching her work is just unreal. Her
Yeah.
abilities. Um, and we've just been so fortunate since then, and we've just sort of grown very slowly. We've got no like intention of being a huge business. We're just quite happy, just growing slowly and being responsible for everything we make. And
Love
yeah,
it. Love it.
so
What a
that's kind of
wonderful
the
start to
story.
a story. I can't believe you were a professional fly fisherman.
I
That's
know,
pretty
and there's
cool.
not many of us. There's not many of us, but yeah, no, that's sort of it really until probably up until this year, it's been my kind of still the sort of main thing that I've done. And then, but probably in the last year, the bags have now overtaken from that to slightly. So yeah,
Yeah, love it. I mean, one thing that you did very well there, you make it sound like so easy and like it happened by accident. But what you did really well, which I'm always telling people to do, is pick a really specific niche and understand who your customer is, and then make your product for just that customer, even though other people will
100%.
buy it. Because I bought one of your bags, but I'm not a fly fisher person, but I
No,
do like
no,
being outdoors. But you didn't
completely.
try and appeal to everyone when you first launched. You just appealed
No.
to a very specific. Was that intentional or was that an accident?
So I knew that I knew that I had not much of one, but a certain amount of a platform within that sport. So I was like, okay, well, it makes sense that we could get this bag in amongst that industry, and it did actually go really, really well, focusing on that niche. And it's just so much easier to market within a niche. Like I can't even imagine what it would be like just being like, oh yes, I'm going to make a mass market product and just crack on, because that just sounds super intimidating. But like now we're not a fly fishing brand at all anymore. We do still have a fly fishing bag, but that's under a separate brand. But it's been really nice that it's been able to just happen kind of organically from just going in a direction, and still we're in a, you know, we are in that niche of like what you would probably describe as an outdoor lifestyle brand. You know, we don't make sort of bags for climbing up Everest necessarily, but you know, we make bags for everyday use and a bit of outdoor use, and you know, it's mostly our bags are bought for just using every day
For wildish people, that's
for
what I love. People
wildish
that like
people.
to be out, like to be outdoors, and that's, I
Yeah,
think, another one of the reasons why we discovered you, because Michelle on my team, I think, stumbled across your website, and then we got a pop-up that came on the screen, which I tell everyone about because I think it's so clever. That rather than saying join our newsletter and we'll give you 10% off, it's like, do you like being outdoors? Download our guide to being outdoors, and of course you think, yeah, that
yeah.
sounds good. So you put your email address in, and then this amazing, like really detailed guide to being outdoors comes through into your inbox, which is a really valuable thing to have. So how
Thank you.
does that work well for you? I imagine it probably does, because I've been telling everyone to go and download your guide, and it's such a good thing to do, other than give a discount if you're trying to get people on your
Yeah,
newsletter list. How many people do you get
yeah.
opting into that, and does it work well? Do people go on to become customers?
I think they do go on to become customers. I don't, we, you know, we're not getting like tens of thousands of people signing up, you know, but maybe a few a day, and I'm really averse to discounts. I don't really like discounts. So if
Yeah,
I was going to discount a product, I'd sell it for that much less in the first place. I find them really, yeah. I've always been a bit kind
yeah,
of uncomfortable with that idea. Um, and actually, I think our products are really great, and think I think they're worth what they are. So, yeah, I think giving a 10% discount to sign up is a really difficult one. Um, Although we definitely would get more sign-ups if we did that, I think, because it's a much more simple equation of being like, here's 10% off your order. However, I think the quality of like the lead quality is much higher, if that makes
yeah.
sense, when you're, you know, offering something. Because like that guide isn't like a, you know, 5 minute let's put something together. We spent like 2 months on that. You know, it was like
You
a
can
real,
tell.
you know, we really put a lot of effort into it, and it's stuff that we've learned over a really long time. And it's about getting outside, but it's about getting outside with purpose, and how the outdoors can really benefit your well-being. But it's not, you know, I think a lot of people are talking along the lines of like, just get outside, it will be good for you. You know, which it is 100%, but there are also things that you can do within that which just, you know, sort of massively increase that, um, those benefits.
Yeah, definitely. I think I found through your guide, Komoot, is it called, the app that you can
Yeah,
use to track? I'm loving that.
so good,
Loving
so
it.
good.
Yeah. So it
Yeah,
was really useful. And you weren't just promoting your business. You were
no,
mentioning
not
other
at all.
things that people that would be into your space would be interested
Yeah,
in. And then I
yeah,
noticed that you also do meetups as well. Does that work well for you to
yeah.
kind of get your mega fans together?
So actually, it's not. It's it's not really about that so much. It's more uh, just so I mentioned earlier that when we started the bag brand, we wanted to start this sort of mental health workshop kind of thing. Essentially, we this is the progression of that. It's not, and now it's nothing to do with mental health or anything like that. It's just how can we help people get outdoors, and we use our bag business to help fund those things. And so what we've started is called the Wildish Club. We say it's a bit like Cubs, but for everyone.
Brilliant.
Particularly adults as well. So I think, it's very difficult when you sort of turn 18 or older to you suddenly lose a lot of those structured outdoorsy things. Obviously there's like very niche outdoor clubs, but if you're not into that niche in a massive way, it's quite intimidating. And so we started the Wildish Club to just be like, we're going to do some fun stuff outdoors. If you'd like to come with us, you're very welcome. And it's been amazing. Like, since we started the Wildish Club, we were really struggling where we live. We live in the Yorkshire Dales. It's very isolated. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's really, it's in that sense, it's spectacular. But there's not many people here. And it's really hard to meet people that are here. And we were becoming quite isolated. We were working from home, working together, living, we do sort of live as much in the middle of nowhere as you
Yeah.
can in England. And we were struggling with that. And since we started the Wildish Club, our sort of friendship group has grown tenfold, and we suddenly feel like we've got a community of people. And the mental health difficulties that we have seem to have, they're always going to be around and rear their head from time to time. But to be honest, they're like hardly at all now, which is
Wow.
amazing.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is amazing. And you mentioned the word of about community there, and I think that is so important. When you're building a small brand, it is about having a community and having people
Yeah,
that want to buy your products because they're made specifically for them and they want to be part of your community, rather than,
yeah,
which is why not doing that discount at all it's just so important. Um,
yeah,
you touched on, let's go back to, you touched on Amy, who I know well, who makes your
yeah.
bags for you. Does she make all your bags? Because you said you originally did some of the
All of
sampling
them.
yourself, which I love the fact that you kind of bootstrapped it to the point where you
Yeah,
got, got the sewing machine out and started making them yourself. So Amy makes everything.
she does.
What are your plans as the business grows if Amy can't possibly make everything for BearMade? What will you do then?
So this is where we are quite different. We don't want to grow beyond Amy, if that makes sense. I think it's, as far as I'm concerned, there's like a clear issue with the way that we have built businesses in the past and the way we've sort of structured stuff around essentially around exponential growth. It's like, oh, we've had a great year, but next year's going to be way better. I think that I don't think you can sort of talk about trying to be a sustainable, responsible business and then talk about that as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because to me, those just don't align at all. So it became, we've worked out that Amy can make about 25 of our like bags behind this one, mate.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
a
so
week.
confused where my hands are. So this bag that's behind me here is sort of the bag we sell more of than any of our others, and she can make about 25 of those a week. So
Yeah,
I think if we can just work on that premise, I think that'd be awesome. Like, you know, if we really did want to grow, then perhaps we'd start selling in other countries. But the way that we'll do that is we'll find a maker within that country. We also
yeah,
only sell our bags in the UK. We don't, again, it's that whole sort of like we're working hard to be as responsible as we can as a business. Suddenly, then working really hard to keep all of our carbon footprint nice and small, and then we
yeah,
put it on a plane. It's
yeah.
just
It's
that
crazy.
just doesn't line up at all to us. So I think if we're going to make something and sell stuff in other countries, then we will find a small maker like Amy in another country, and we will share the business for that country with that person, and we will just work in that way, and
Yeah.
that we feel much more comfortable with. So yeah, we might end up making 25 bags a week in England, 25 bags a week in America, 25 bags a
That
week in
makes
Germany.
total sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's
'Cause-
our kind of, if we are to grow, that would be how we do it.
yeah. Because although my make it, my business is called Make It British. I almost wish I hadn't labelled it as British, because actually, for me, it has always been about making locally. Because I
Yeah.
worked, for big corporate companies that just shipped everything all around the world. And it was about making things in the UK for people that wanted to buy it locally. And so I think what you're doing makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's just crazy shipping products all over the place.
Well,
That being said, where do you get your fabrics from? Because there is a limitation to what fabrics you can
yeah.
buy in the UK.
So that's been the hardest thing, is sort of where we can source stuff from. So our fabric is an organic cotton that is grown and milled in India. That then
Yeah,
gets shipped over here to British Millerain, where they dye it in Leeds and they
yeah.
proof it in Rochdale. Our webbing comes from Bama Bond in Sheffield.
Oh, yeah,
Our
brilliant.
uh, and that's which those are the two absolute main parts of the materials that we use, right, in our bags. So the vast majority of the materials are from British-based businesses. So then it becomes really difficult beyond that. So like our buckles on top of the bags, they come from Austria-Alpin in Austria, which we then
Yeah.
get sent by road to here. But they are just like the best buckles ever. They're ridiculously good, and they last forever, and have a really satisfying noise when they close.
They do,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So we were like, and then our zips come from Switzerland, which we use on our small bags and that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but it is really difficult. I tried so hard to try and get cotton, like sort of fabric that was maybe milled here or something, but just it suddenly becomes quite cost prohibitive. And I never ever wanted to make something that, I'm very conscious that our bags aren't cheap at all, right? But I never wanted to make something that was going to be a 5, 6, 700 pound bag, because, I grew up on a council estate with like no money. So I can't, I struggle being like, oh, 200 pounds, which
Yeah.
actually is actually great value for what our products are.
Yeah. Because they're
But if
beautifully
it,
made.
thank you. But if it was, going up that significant increase, it's just suddenly like, again, it's that whole like sustainability only being available to people who have a lot of money, which I
Yeah.
also just not comfortable with. So
No.
yeah,
I completely understand where you're coming from, and a lot of people say that about British made products. They are going to be a little bit more expensive because the salaries
yeah,
and the wages here are more expensive.
completely.
However, if you buy something that's made here, that's made really well, and it's not trend driven, but it was made to last, and it will last you a lifetime, then it's worth investing in it. Because the bag that I bought from
100%.
you can tell it's fantastic thick webbing, that's not going to break or fray. The
Yeah,
buckles, like you say, are very satisfying.
yeah,
The zips on them are really good quality, and the cotton on it's really nice and thick. So, and the
yeah,
seams are really well constructed, because obviously they're made slowly, because Amy can only make 5 a day. So you
yeah.
can tell that it will last forever, and you don't do them in kind of trend driven colours. So
Not
yeah,
at
I
all.
think
Yeah,
I think they're very reasonably priced for what they are. You do also do transparent pricing, don't you? So
yeah,
tell everyone a little bit more
yeah,
about
yeah.
that.
Yeah, I think again, it's I've worked in retail before, and I sort of as soon as I kind of learned what stuff started was actually costing to make and how much companies were charging for it, I was like, this is wrong.
Yeah,
This is just completely wrong. Making stuff for next to nothing in China or wherever, and charging, 10 times, 100 times, huge, huge price increases from what the product actually costs to make. And I was just like, I feel so uncomfortable about this. So when, pretty early on in starting the brand, I was like, actually, I think even people will value it more if they know what's gone into it, which, it goes against a lot of advice I had. A lot of people are like, what are you doing, Oscar?
yeah,
No one's gonna buy that. But actually the opposite happened, and people really appreciate it, and they appreciate the honesty, and it shows that, you know, it just kind of is standing behind our values to a certain degree. Because I think the reality is for a lot of products, if we knew the cost price and how much they were charging it, no one would buy it. Because
Exactly.
business for a long time has, to a certain degree, been built behind this like curtain. And it's like
Yeah.
you only see this little outside bit that's all pretty and nice. And then there's all this stuff going on behind the curtain, which no one
Yeah.
really knows
All
about.
the other
And
stuff that you're paying for in that product, you're
yeah,
paying for
yeah,
all of the cost, the advertising and the expensive
yeah,
models that they use and agency this and that. Yeah. And
yeah,
when the big retailers, it's all about the stores and the cost of the
yeah,
staff in the
sure.
stores. So do you
Completely.
just sell through your website, or do you do any other form of sort of promotion or marketing? Is
Yeah.
everything done through the website?
So yeah, we just sell through our website and our shop that I'm in right now. We opened this
Brilliant.
shop in Pateley Bridge, our local town, just a couple of months ago now, which is sort of we have our bags, but we also sell some coffee and some other like wonderful things from lovely British brands.
Brilliant.
Um, and yeah, so but we've made a really sort of conscious decision not to sell into other shops.
Yeah.
Um, Again, it's that whole margin thing. Suddenly, just we would have to double the price of our products, or we would have to significantly cut the cost of making it. Neither of which I particularly want to do. And we do live in an age now where direct consumer sales is pretty normal, and people aren't horrified by that thought. Again, I'd love to kind of, because the bags like feel great, and when you pick them up, they're very tactile. So it'd be lovely to have come up, sort of try and work out a way where we could get them into more people's hands without that traditional retail model. I just haven't worked that out yet.
Do you think you will ever expand out of bags, or do you sit? You must sit there, the two of you, and think, "Oh, what about if we did a bag like this, or did a bag like that?"
Yeah,
Or how many? Because you've got how many styles in the range? Half a dozen max.
yeah, about that six or seven. Um, yeah, it is very difficult. Our range was bigger actually at one point, but then we cut it down because we were just like, just marketing a few bags, right, is hard enough.
Yeah,
Suddenly trying to market like 10, 12 bags, you're like, oh,
yeah,
this
so
is a
true.
lot of work.
And too
Um,
much choice as well for people if you give them
yeah,
too many different styles to choose from.
yeah, completely. We do have this slightly weird thing where, which you might be able to enlighten me on this actually, Kate. You may have come across it before, but so the most expensive product we sell, which is that bag, that bag behind
Yeah,
me, is our bestseller by an astronomical margin,
brilliant.
which doesn't necessarily follow like traditional business um, sense, because typically, right, most businesses have an expensive one, a cheap
Yeah.
one, people buy the middle one, right? So yeah, I don't know if you've come across that kind of thing before.
Well, I think it's more if people can see the value in something.
Yeah.
So if they think the cost of the big, how much is the big one compared to the smallest one? Because maybe people think, actually, I've only got to pay a little bit more to get the big one. And because
Mm,
you're so good at explaining the value of your bags and you're not selling them just on price, maybe people see that big one as being fantastic value. And
yeah.
do you make less profit and less margin on the bigger one than you do the smaller ones? And maybe that's why. Maybe people, because it is. How much is the big bag? Two.
215.
So yeah, that
And
is a
then
bargain.
yeah, it
Compared,
is. It
because the
is.
small one was about 100, I think.
So the
The
little
one I
one you've
bought.
got,
Yeah,
that was
80.
65. Yeah.
65. Okay, but if you think of the size of it, and the other
Yeah.
one's just over, it's got 3.5 times the price. It's more than three and
Yeah.
a half times the size, isn't it? The actual
Yeah. Yeah.
volume you can get into that. Plus, also your typical, customer that buys your products probably wants the one they can pack everything into, because they're not
Yeah.
like me. I bought it to go out for a dog walk of like 45 minutes to an hour, so I only
Yeah.
need a few things in it. Whereas if they're
Yeah.
going out hiking for the whole day, they will
Yeah.
buy the bigger one.
Yes, I think that's true. And I think also I think a lot of people who are buying our bags are buying them for commuting, really. And I think that bigger
Ah,
one is
interesting.
sort of
Yeah.
perfect
On
kind
your
of size
bike.
for that. Yeah, yeah, takes your computer and all of that stuff. So I think that's probably why. But it's just quite an interesting one because it's sort of something I've been racking my brain around. But yeah,
Yeah, I reckon that's why. And plus, it's a fantastic bag. And have
thank
you
you.
seen your costs going up recently? And what have you
Yeah.
done to what have you done about that?
So yeah, so costs are going up all the time. We had to put our prices up for the
Mm,
first time in ages, and that was really hard. And I was terrified about it, to be honest. I was
yeah.
sort of like, you know, it kind of feels like you're going to suddenly stop selling completely overnight. And we didn't, thankfully.
Good.
Potentially we're selling more, maybe a little bit, since putting our prices up. So, but we were very honest about it. Like I can't, one something that I really like hate is when so I've been looking at something for a while, and when you've eventually decided to buy it, you go back and they've suddenly increased the price massively and not told you, and you're like, "Arr," I really don't like that. So we were really open about it, and we gave people the opportunity. We sort of gave people a week's notice and like, look, we have to increase our prices because of X, Y, Z. But for the next week, they're going to stay the same. And if you've been saving up for a while, then now's your chance to get one before we put the prices up. Um, but yeah, I think we're fortunate again in that they are of a certain value that you know it, that's not didn't have such an impact. But yeah, you know, the frustrating thing is our prices are still going up. So we may have to do the same again.
Yeah.
Um, in 6 months' time. But I had some advice earlier this year, which was so obvious, but really kind of hit home. Which was essentially, you know, if you've got a business that's selling stuff but not making money, then you don't really have a business, which is very valid and something that I keep having to remind myself because, as hard as it feels to put those prices up, also you've got to be really honest with yourself and go, okay, well, if I don't put these prices up, then I don't really have an effective business because you can't just have a business that always breaks even, right? That's not an ideal situation to be as a business. I mean, it can be if you're sort of giving away your profits to charity, great, but we currently don't really take a salary from from the business. We just keep reinvesting everything. Um, so yeah, so there's probably going to be a point where we have to put our prices up again. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
That's so
and yeah,
that's so true. That's what I'm always saying to people. If you're making a profit on your products, then you haven't got a business, and then you
yeah,
can't continue to serve the customers who love your products. So people
exactly,
that love your bags, that are waiting for the next color to come out or saving up for
yeah,
one. If you were to go out of business because you'd not made any profit, then that
exactly,
would be even more disappointing to you.
exactly. And I think the other thing is it's where we're very fortunate is that we really do try and price our products fairly. So we've still got a huge amount of wiggle room in relation to similar products of a similar quality.
Mm.
So I think we will be able to keep, if we have to, we can increase our prices a bit more and still be considered good value.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So Nell's still working in another job as well, is she? What was her
No,
background?
no. So Nell was working as a vet until October last year. So she's just had her 1 year anniversary of not being a vet, which
Yeah.
has been brilliant. life is much better now. It's a very stressful, challenging job.
Yeah. What sort of animals was she dealing with? Was it people's pets?
Did both, yeah. So she started
Gosh.
with large animals, then went on to
Mm,
doing small animals. But yeah, not, it really wasn't good for her mental health, not good
I
for her
can
physical health,
imagine.
not really good, just
Yeah.
full stop. Um, and at the first possible opportunity, we were like, that just stop. And sort of this time last year, we could see that the bags were really sort of, it was kind of a proper business and it was starting to make money and take off. And I was like, let's stop that. I can't manage all this stuff on my own. And she joined BearMade, and it's been awesome.
Brilliant.
It's amazing working with your wife. It's has its challenges.
Yeah, I can
Um,
imagine. I've done that
you
in the
know,
past with a past business. I couldn't do it again.
yeah, yeah. I think particularly working together from home and living in that space too was just too
Yeah.
much. Like since we've taken the shop here, it's been really brilliant,
What do you
and
split
definitely
up? One of you in
changed.
the shop, one of you at home.
Yeah, we do a little bit, but even just being here and having sort of other people sort of bringing it down, sort of taking the pressure off a little bit
Yeah.
is really beneficial.
Yeah, otherwise you just live and breathe BearMade. Oh,
Yes,
Oscar,
yeah.
brilliant. You've been an amazing guest. Can you just tell
It's been
everyone
a
where's the
pleasure.
best place to find you, to find BearMade? How can they, what's the address for your shop? What's your social media?
So we are about halfway up the high street in Pateley Bridge if you want to come by for a cup of coffee and a chat, or we're on Instagram. We're at bearmade_UK or www.bearmade.co.uk. That is where you'll find us.
Brilliant. Oscar, thank you so much. You're an absolute superstar.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Kate.
And I'll come up and visit you next time I'm in Pateley Bridge.
Please do.
Bye.
Bye.